And today I want to talk about the walk of the tightrope, and what belonging and becoming and how all of that fits in at work.
Well, in doing this, it's so funny. This experience is both an experience of arriving and still going. Like, you're always moving between feeling as though you have reached a destination, but recognizing that there's still so far to go. But my journey in the professional world, navigating my career, was very much a tightrope. One of the things that I think about is, if you hear victims of emotional or physical abuse who have sort of made it through, and they reflect on their experience, they sort of look back at photos once they've gotten through the experience, and they don't recognize themselves, or rather they recognize how hard it was in that moment. And I'm not comparing my experience in corporate America or equating it to the experience of being surviving trauma. But when I look back at the photos of me working for different companies, I see the smile on my face, I see the clothes that I wear, I hear my voice, I hear the laughter, and I am almost unrecognizable. I don't recognize myself. And it's interesting that you don't really recognize how much you have shape-shifted until you come out of that situation and you're looking back on it. And so I didn't know that it was a tightrope until I got out and I moved on from one company to another company. And now that I'm sort of doing this work under the banner of the Clue Studio, looking back, I'm like, who was that person? But the sort of instinct to conform and to fit in and to shape shift in order to feel as though you belong is a strong impulse.
Yeah. Just harping on the word belonging, I think you and I 1,000 times each have heard that phrase of bringing your full and whole self to work. I think what is under discussed is, what is the cost of showing up fully in spaces and places that aren't built for you?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking of that. I was thinking of the tightrope, and I was thinking of the circus, right? That's where you see that at. And at the circus, yes, it's a performance, it's an act, and it's a show, but it's also chaos disguised as choreography. And in a lot of senses and tenses, you can describe corporate culture that way. And so I was thinking about the contortionist. You talked about some of that bending that we do. You know, we sit back in awe looking at this contortionist and what they're doing with their body, but we never really take the time to think about that flexibility. At what cost is it to the body, or at what cost is it to the spirit?
Yeah.
Or even like the tightrope artist itself, right? So carefully and meticulously making his or her way to the top. Once there, the weight on their shoulders, the balancing act, the juggling even, and the stakes being so high, right? Because you've gotten so high up and yet you're so easily able to fall. These aren't just circus acts to me. These are metaphors for what it's like to be a person of color in corporate America. So when I think about the stakes being so high and the pressure to perform, to me, the two go hand in hand. And then I think back to that phrase of showing up fully as yourself and how that changed along the way. I don't know if you started to hear leaders, I know I did, especially leaders of color, started to say, no, don't bring your full self. So it was like, oh, I need to only bring portions of myself.
Right.
More of that conforming, that tucking, that hiding.
Yeah.
And it's wild, because basically you're saying, I'm not acceptable as I am.
Right.
In order to placate.
Yeah. It's so funny. The first experience that I kind of consciously had with this idea of a tightrope, and that is a beautiful metaphor and a perfect metaphor to describe that. I would say for me, it was standing on the outside, watching people make that tightrope walk. And from the outside, I was judging them.
Oh.
So, before I was tightroping myself, I had folks that I looked up to in professional spaces that were already up there doing the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And this tightrope that you talk about is very much this balancing of who you are internally with who you are expected to be externally. And again, from the outside, watching some of my friends do this walk, I watched them make choices about the parts of themselves that would be on display externally and what parts of themselves that they choose to sort of tuck away. And to be honest, there were instances where I judged the choices that my friends were making in the tightrope that they were walking because I felt that it was a compromise. Again, from the outside, right? I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And when it was my turn to climb that ladder, to step out on that line, and you begin to take those steps, it is not as easy as it looks from the ground. And even though I have a really strong sense of self, I still made trade-offs that in the short term would allow me to move forward, but in the long term, it compromised my sense of who I was. And so, again, I'm just kind of coming back to this idea that, as people of color coming up, we watch individuals tightrope walk and we're like, we want it. But then for the people that we know, we watch them make choices that are not aligned with the choices that we would make. And we sometimes judge them for it. Then when it is our turn, and you're up there and the winds are hitting you from all sides and you begin to make some of those same choices, it's like you just don't understand until you are there walking the walk.
And it even makes me think about the leaders who I kind of judged too. I was like, what you mean don't show up fully as myself? I think that the comment came from a caring and concerning place. I think that it was looked at as guidance. But I also feel like no one really recognized that all of that is steeped in trauma. For you to say that your full humanity is not welcome here.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what's under discussed. And that I think we need to really examine and decide, well, are these some of the spaces that I really need to be in?
Right. It's a hard choice. I mean, at the end of the day, we started this. I have a son. We live in New York City. We have bills to pay. We have people who depend on us. These choices don't exist in a vacuum, and the consequences of those choices are not low stakes at all. So, what happens when the choice that you are confronted with is one of you having a life and having the ability to maintain a lifestyle versus standing up for what you believe in? That's a hard choice to make on any given Sunday.
Yes.
So I don't take it lightly. I think I've been told during my career, not in word, but in glances, in actions, to really, tuck in pieces of myself in order to belong. And I think early in my career, I did it because I didn't want to be seen as someone who was different.
Yeah.
But the further along I got in my career, feeling a sense of fulfillment in the work that I was doing and being able to really be Steffon with a capital S felt more important to me than being a Steffon with a lowercase s. And for me, that aha moment set me off on a path that was about self-discovery and expansive growth that I wouldn't experience if I was always trying to fit in.